Pop star Michael Jackson has died. The 50-year-old singer was taken to hospital in Los Angeles after being taken ill at home. He's reported to have suffered a heart attack. Well, our US correspondent Robert Nisbet is in Washington. Robert, take us through the events of this evening as they unfolded.
Well, as we understand, he collapsed at his house, and paramedics on a fire truck in Los Angeles were called. This is a rented home that he had in Holmby Hills, part of Los Angeles. He had been rehearsing for his concerts in London there, and he was found by a paramedic on the ground, and that paramedic then told TMZ, the website that effectively broke this story, the entertainment website, that he was unresponsive. He was then put in an ambulance and taken to hospital, and it was from then that the information started to filter out. A cardiologist at UCLA said that Michael Jackson had indeed died of a cardiac arrest, and now we're witnessing these extraordinary scenes outside the UCLA Medical Center, which has treated many a star, many a celebrity, of now what appears to be dozens, if not hundreds, of people gathering outside. We are expecting a press conference there shortly, but certainly what started off as an initial report on a celebrity website has now been confirmed by multiple sources, including the LA Times and the Associated Press, that he had indeed died, and the condolences being sent out to his family. I've just been passed a statement from the mayor of Gary, Indiana, where, of course, the Jacksons hail from, expressing his condolences. Authorities say that it appeared that he suffered a cardiac arrest. He said that the Indiana native was the greatest entertainer in the world and a humble person. Al Sharpton asking people and fans, Al Sharpton, the civil rights leader, who was a very close friend of Michael Jackson, asking people to pray for the Jackson families. The Jackson family is a very large family, of course. He was one of, I think, 9 siblings, and of course, they will be consuming this news and waiting for updates, as many of us are.
And of course, Michael Jackson had 3 young children. Do we know now where they might be, who might be caring for them?
That is a good question. We don't know. Just a refresher, of course, that he had the last 2 children. He had Paris and Prince with Debbie Rowe, who was his former nurse. As part of an agreement following their split, he took custody of the children. There was some controversy about that as to whether she would be receiving access rights, which he has indeed. And you'll remember many of those tabloid shots of him with his family. He was very protective of his children, making them wear veils in some cases so their faces wouldn't be recognizable. Where those children are, who is looking after them now, we don't know. I mean, there are problems within the Jackson family. Some of them had reconciled, but many of the siblings were kind of at open war with each other and indeed with their parents. So whether this is a family issue that is being that the children are being taken care of by members of his family, we'll have to see.
Okay, let's just bring some messages that are coming in on Twitter. These are from some celebrities over in the United States. So Ashton Kutcher, husband of Demi Moore, has said, RIP, sending love and light to family and friend, but especially his kids. I plead to the public to refuse to consume media that does not respect the anonymity of Michael's children. And Lindsay Lohan, another Hollywood star, has said that she's sending her love and prayers out to Michael and his family. And another one from our Foreign Secretary over here, David Miliband. He has said on Twitter, never has one soared so high and yet dived so low. Robert, we're going to get all kinds of words and condolence messages from around the world, but I guess the most important people here are his millions of fans who will be truly devastated, many of whom literally follow him for years around the world to any event that he might be speaking at to try and get some kind of glimpse at him. He really is one of those iconic people who had dedicated fans that would do anything to get near him.
That's correct. I mean, I remember following the Michael Jackson first child sex abuse allegations involving the child Geordie Chandler. You remember back in the early 90s, 93, I believe it was, which was eventually settled out of court. It never did actually go to court. And during that time, he was obviously at pretty much still the height of his popularity. You still had Thriller was still a recent memory, as was Bad. And what you found when you were covering this story is wherever you went, whether it be to a house or to his house or to the house of the boy, now a man who was then involved, you would get fans literally taking you on. We were the media reporting these stories, doing our job, and yet you would be quite aggressively engaged by his fans. Such was the depth of their emotion for him. And many books, many articles have been written as to why this man certainly did engender such passion from his fans. And I think what most people seem to say, what you'll find in the shaded part of the Venn diagram when people discuss this, is the fact that he appeared to be vulnerable, that appealed to many young music fans and many older ones as well, who sensed and felt that people were out to get him, and therefore that they rallied the ranks around him to support him.
Now, thank you. Let's go to CBS correspondent in Los Angeles, Terry O'Keefe. Terry, thanks very much for joining us. This news must just be sinking in there.
It is, Samantha. It's been a really rough day in Los Angeles and in Hollywood, I have to say, because earlier today we were actually working on the passing of Farrah Fawcett. And now all this came up within the last 3.5 hours. So it's been quite a shock, a very sad day here in Los Angeles for a lot of people. Michael Jackson, whether you love him or hate him, he was much beloved by many, many people. I covered his trial, his child molestation trial in California 4 years ago. And every day, dozens and dozens of people would come out in support of him. So this is a shock to everybody in the Los Angeles and in the Hollywood community.
Terry, there had been many rumours surrounding Michael Jackson's health for years, but particularly the past few months. Do you know what was actually fact? What was the state of his health prior to tonight?
Well, it's hard to tell what exactly his state was, but in recent weeks, there hasn't been much talk about him being in any ill health. He was actually rehearsing for that big show, those big tour in London in the summer, and it was he went through some very rigorous physical examinations in order to be preparing and rehearsing for that. So there have been rumors and talk in the past about his health, but nothing recently that would be a red flag for anybody that he would, have a heart attack today.
And Terry, tell us about his family. We were hearing from our own correspondent about his children, but of course Michael Jackson had a huge extended family, one of 9 siblings. Was he close to them? What was the state of his relations with his parents? He obviously had somewhat bad relations with his father in the past.
Right. Well, his father actually was one of the people who spoke with the celebrity website today, saying that his son was in very bad shape and they were rushing down to the hospital. And also his brothers to be with him. I know that he did have a very close relationship with Randy and some of his other brothers and Janet, but some of the other siblings, it's hard to tell. I think they go in and out of actually being close together. But overall, the Jackson family was a very close-knit family, and they stuck together. At his trial, for instance, you saw his whole family come out in support of him quite often. So. And again, as your reporter said, he leaves behind 3 children. Where they will end up, it's unclear right now, but definitely a difficult time for the family.
Okay, Terry O'Keefe, thank you very much for joining us from Los Angeles this evening. Well, let's go to Fox correspondent Adam Housley, who's at the UCLA hospital in Los Angeles. Adam, what are the hospital actually saying? We haven't had any official confirmation yet from them, have we?
Yes, we have. Well, not from the hospital, Samantha, but we have official confirmation, obviously, from a number of sources that Michael Jackson died about an hour ago now here at the UCLA Medical Center. For those people on your viewership watching who may not know where UCLA is, University of California, Los Angeles, it's in the area of Westwood, which is kind of the western part of Los Angeles, a couple of miles from Santa Monica Beach. That is where UCLA is located. That's where Michael Jackson was brought, primarily because of the close proximity to the Holmby Hills neighborhood, which is not far from Beverly Hills, very affluent part of Los Angeles. Now, he was brought here about in a noon hour our time, so roughly that's about the 8 o'clock hour at night your time. He was brought here, and I was told by Los Angeles police officers that I know that he was in very, very bad shape, that they were administering CPR on the way to the hospital, that it didn't look good at that time. When we arrived an hour ago already, we were hearing that Elizabeth Taylor, of course, a very close friend of Michael Jackson's for a lot of years, another star at a young age who has had some very controversial things happen in her life, and also someone very beloved in the Hollywood community, had been readied and rushed here to say her goodbyes. We were told that about 45 minutes ago. So it's a situation here right now, and having covered the trial not only for Fox News but also for you guys at Sky News, I can tell you that it's already becoming a scene here in the middle of this college area of Los Angeles. You have students that have basically massed outside the hospital all the way around it. It's a large hospital. You've got fans that are starting to show up blaring Michael's music. You have people in costume. You're hearing sirens again now. Right there, another fire truck coming by. It seems like fire engines are coming by every few minutes. Someone's pulled the fire alarm. Someone tried to sneak back entrance of the hospital, which set off the alarm, trying to get information about what's going on. As you might understand, that when you have a situation like this with a king of pop, a controversial figure, someone who is very well known throughout the world, arguably one of the most famous people in the world, any kind of information comes out could be worth money. So you have people, of course, doing whatever they can to try to find out information regardless to what's going on here in Los Angeles. So we do expect to hear something from the hospital. I'm at a press conference location right now. We'll have a live picture for you momentarily, and if you want to come to us later on, we'll be able to show that to you. But there is a press conference set up here now. We expect to hear something, and the family has to approve what is said. According to law here in California, the family basically has to approve before the hospital could come out and give any kind of statement in regards to a patient's condition. So are they waiting for Joe Jackson to come out? He tends to be this family spokesperson as the head of the family, the controversial head of the family. That could be the case. We don't know exactly, but when we get that information, we'll have it for you. At this point right now, it's just a massive scene outside the hospital as people have come here to either pay their respects or to see the craziness that is the Michael Jackson story.
Yeah. Adam, we're looking at those aerial shots of the hospital now, and as you're saying, a huge number of people arriving, not just media crews, but people who want to pay their own respects. You were saying we're expecting to hear from a family member. Has there been any sight of any members of Michael Jackson's family? TMZ were reporting that many of them were rushing to the hospital to be with Michael Jackson, but has anyone, any of the media crews there actually seen them?
I have seen some members of the Jackson family go in. I haven't seen any of the members that, viewers would know. I haven't seen, for example, LaToya or Janet or any of the Jackson brothers. Or for that matter, I haven't even seen Michael's father come through yet. But there have been members of the Jackson family or the Jackson extended family that I have noticed from their faces, from seeing them at the Jackson trial, dressed up in attire that would be appropriate for someone paying their last respects. I have seen those people walk into the hospital. We do know there's a number of black SUVs outside the hospital, which I was told by hospital staff who have transported family members to the hospital to pay their respects. I was told that Elizabeth Taylor, again, was being brought here, and that at that point he was already dead. That she had not arrived at the hospital, and they were going to keep him there until she had a chance to pay her respects. That's where we are right now.
Adam, the TMZ website, who've been basically had this story from the very first, they're saying now that a source inside the hospital told us there was, and it says in quotes, absolute chaos after Jackson arrived. People who were with the singer were screaming, "You've got to save him, you've got to save him." Clearly extremely shocking and very tragic for them.
Yes, it's that you're seeing that scene outside right now too, with people coming all over the place. I mean, it's just it's in fact, as I'm talking to you right now, we're setting up our live report. You'll see us on camera you'll see us on satellite. Your viewers won't until you punch us up, but we'll be on satellite here momentarily to start giving reports through the camera. So you'll see video shots on the ground here in front of the hospital. That's being set up as I'm talking to you right now. In fact, there's going to be an earpiece in my other ear, the one that I'm not using right now for the phone. So Samantha, what I'll do is I'll see you guys. I'm going to head get this in right now and get this stuff all plugged in, and we'll be in touch with you guys shortly.
Okay, Adam, thank you. Well, let's talk to music broadcaster and writer Paul Gambaccini, who's on the phone. Paul, thanks very much for joining us tonight. What's your reaction to this breaking news of Michael Jackson's death?
I'm sorry, of course. I'm stunned, but I can't say I'm really shocked because I had feared some kind of negative health result from these dates at the O2. I never thought that he would be able to do them all because he's a 50-year-old man with a poor recent health history, and to think that he could subject his body to this rigor was unrealistic. Now, what I didn't foresee was that the stress alone might be enough to fell him, and I'm sure we'll get medical reports throughout the next 24 hours to say exactly what did cause this attack, but I'm sure that the stress of these dates had something to do with it.
Did you know Michael Jackson? Had you seen him in recent years?
No, I know that Dermot O'Leary told me about it, hosting the O2 press conference, and he was surprised when Jackson embraced him that, of course, he's a tall man, over 6 foot. People, because they think of teeny cute Michael Jackson being 11 years old singing "I Want You Back," and then this thin person, and they don't realize he was tall, and he was capable of speaking in a low voice as well as that strange high voice. And he was a middle-aged person with bad health history who had turned his body into a medical gymnasium, and this is sometimes what happens.
How will you remember him as a performer and entertainer?
I will remember him as the greatest showman I've ever seen. Not the most emotional. James Brown certainly gets that vote. But I saw him at Wembley Arena as part of the Jackson 5, at Wembley Stadium during the height of his solo success. And my late colleague and friend John Peel agreed with me, even though Michael Jackson was not his musical cup of tea, that he was the greatest showman in popular music history. He paid attention to every detail, and the effect was overwhelming. And he is the standard against which I still measure live acts.
And Paul, he was a talented man, an icon, as we've been hearing tonight, and he transcended the ages, didn't he? We've just had one email from a viewer who said that their 8-year-old son is a huge fan with every album, and I'm not looking forward to having to break the news to him this morning. So he's a man that really transcended the generations.
The great records have proven to be timeless. It's true of the Beatles, and it is true of Michael Jackson. Time is flat for young people today. With the internet, they don't think in terms of oldies. Everything's current. It may have happened before breakfast, but it's available and everybody is worth listening to. And people of all ages love the Michael Jackson music from 1969 to 1995.
Paul, it's difficult to underplay this magnitude of this breaking news this evening. Would you compare it perhaps to the huge event of John Lennon's death?
There's one difference there, which was the violence, and also the fact that Lennon had just reemerged with a very good record, and he was in a happy period in his life. So the circumstances aren't comparable. After all, murder is much worse than a heart attack. But in terms of the feeling of being bereft by the people who adored Michael Jackson, this is a profound experience for them. I called a friend who had been inspired to sing by Michael Jackson, and I expected him to be in grief, and he was sobbing. And in Japan, this is the #1 news story. And Michael Jackson really is the last of the classic pop stars on the male side. We have Madonna on the female side, but really he was the last of these giant artists of the magnitude of Elvis and Sinatra and the Beatles.
You said that you were concerned for his health when you saw that he was having this tour, 50-date tour that was due to start in a couple of weeks in London. Of course, many people were concerned for his health, but it was said that he underwent very rigorous checks to see that he was up to it. But music-wise, did you see this as a comeback tour or more a man who needed, unfortunately, to make some money?
Well, I thought of it as a harvest tour. That's what I call it, when someone goes out and does their oldies. And there's nothing, incidentally, to say that somebody shouldn't do that. because people who didn't see him in his prime could see him now. Just as I never saw Muddy Waters in his prime, I saw him in his 60s. I was glad he toured in his 60s, so I could see him. The fact is, he hadn't made a relevant record since 1995, and I don't see that he was going to be brave enough to do what Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan did, which is to actually act their age. That was the one problem with his career. He had so much raw material to draw on from the last 15 years of his life, but he hadn't seemed interested in incorporating that into his music like Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan did. But you don't need that because you've got what he did between 69 and 95.
Okay, Paul Gambaccini, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Let's listen in to our colleagues over in Fox News in the States. They are talking to the actor Joe Pesci.
I really think he was. He was, downhearted for a while, and I think he finally got himself up because he always sounded a lot more happy,
Well, we hope that he was in his final days. Joe Pesci, an actor, a friend of Michael Jackson's, and remembering the life which ended today after 50 years. Joe, thanks very much.
Thank you.
You can see the crowd.
Well, that was Fox News talking to Joe Pesci. Unfortunately, we just came in at the end of that interview. Well, our US correspondent Robert Nisbet joins me now. Robert, words from Joe Pesci. We've got Hollywood stars giving their reaction. Here on Sky News, we spoke to Uri Geller, a very close friend of Michael Jackson, who had literally just heard the news. He was devastated, extremely shocked, so much so he couldn't actually speak to us. This is going to have reverberations throughout Hollywood and the world of the rich and famous.
That's right, and I think Paul Gambaccini touched on it there when he was talking about the level of emotion that surrounds Michael Jackson, whether it be their reaction to the media covering Michael Jackson, or indeed, his close friends and his acolytes. There is a level of attachment between fans to Michael Jackson that I really haven't witnessed with any other celebrity. And again, Gambaccini was talking there about his popularity, not just in the United States and in Europe. I mean, he really was a truly global star, even when his career slumped in Western Europe and in the US in the last few years or so. He remained a giant star in Asia and frequently made public appearances there. So this will have truly kind of international reverberations, and I would expect certainly within the next few hours we're likely to get a remark from the President of the United States, and I would suggest that other world leaders will probably be pushed to comment as well. And there aren't many entertainers when you will see heads of government instantly putting pen to paper or mouth to microphone and saying how much this man will be missed. And I think it's important to stress again that this wasn't just a musical icon, he was a cultural icon. What he introduced in terms of what he wore, remember the moonwalk dance, which he did for the first time, I think in 1985, and he did again at his arraignment for the last child sex abuse hearing in 2005, which he did on the roof of a car. That was his signature move that affected and impacted around the world how people could have viewed entertaining. His concerts were these Sonne Lumiere extravaganzas, especially those that he did after Thriller and Bad. They became kind of event concerts, pulling in all new technology and lasers, etc. So this was a man who wasn't just a musical giant, but also a cultural one whose impact really cannot be overstated. And also he was, in effect, one of the first big tabloid celebrities. Every detail of his life was picked over. Allegations in the National Enquirer sold millions of extra copies. The News of the World as well did very well out of covering this man. Some of these stories were true, many weren't, but this was part of his appeal, that there was this pantomime side to him, this performer, and people were trying to get behind the surface to find out what made this man one-man tick, and the highs and lows made him more attractive to the media rather than less. But such was the impression that his albums made that his musical legacy will never be overshadowed. Thriller still remains arguably one of the greatest albums ever recorded, and despite all of the madness, all of the trials, all of the cases, all of the medical ups and downs, that will still be seen as his signature achievement.
Yeah, Robert, we've just had reaction in on the TMZ website from Quincy Jones, who produced that legendary Thriller album you were just mentioning there. In his statement, he said, "I'm absolutely devastated at this tragic and unexpected news. For Michael to be taken away from us so suddenly at such a young age, I just don't have the words." He goes on, "Divinity brought our souls together on The Wiz and allowed us to do what we were able to throughout the 80s. To this day, the music we created together on Off the Wall, Thriller and Bad is played in every corner of the world. And the reason for that is because he had it all: talent, grace, professionalism and dedication. He was the consummate entertainer, and his contributions and legacy will be felt upon the world forever. I've lost my little brother today, and part of my soul has gone with him." That statement from Quincy Jones on the TMZ website. Robert, you were talking about the musical legacy there, in particular the Thriller album, which really sent him into superstardom. Millions of those albums sold around the world, but in later years he didn't really produce much music, and he seemed to hark back to the old days very much, didn't he?
Well, that's right. I mean, where do you go when you have an album as successful as Thriller? This was 1983. There were 9 songs on it. 6 of those 9 songs became #1 hits for him in the United States. It won 8 Grammys, not just nominated for 8 Grammys, it won 8 Grammys, and it sold 70 million copies worldwide. And for a while, over the past 2 decades, it was the best-selling album of all time. That accolade now goes to the Eagles, but it's still up there. And so, where do you go from there? His next album, Bad, that sold 30 million copies, and if you remember, he tried to replicate the success he had with the Thriller video directed by John Landis on the Thriller album by hiring Martin Scorsese to do the video for that title song, Bad. That still sold 30 million copies. But then after that, the slide did become kind of precipitous. You had the album Dangerous, again, still quite successful. It had that black and white single on with that shape-shifting video people will remember. Then you remember History and the giant statue that was floated down the Thames to promote that album. It didn't perform as well as expected. And then his last really studio album, which was Invincible, it only stayed in the charts for 6 weeks or so in the UK. There was only 1 definable hit on it. So, and then, of course, the problems with the financial upkeep of such gigantic estates as Neverland, and I've flown over it in a helicopter, and it is absolutely enormous with a funfair on it. Just the costs of keeping that running and his various homes around the world, as well as various other financial constraints he had on him, because what many of these stars, what you don't know that many of these stars do, they get these money, but out of that they have to pay their retinue. They often have to settle up with their record company, and they tend to borrow on their assets, and that's really what happened to Michael Jackson. He borrowed far more than he had, and so some of the decisions that he was making, sadly towards the end of his life, many people were saying were dictated for financial reasons rather than artistic ones. And again, as Paul Gambaccini was saying there, for a 50-year-old man to sign up to the number of concerts that he did in the UK, even though they sold out, so quickly, was certainly eye-opening. And because of his record of health issues, from skin disorders to this rumored lung condition, again, rumored skin cancer recently, being hospitalized because of a spider bite, collapsing because of exhaustion in the mid-90s, with a medical record like that, taking on such an extraordinary level of commitment in the UK certainly surprised many people who had been following him for years.
Robert, thank you for now. Well, we've been getting reaction in from around the world. A couple of minutes ago, our colleagues over at Fox News spoke to Oscar-winning actor Joe Pesci for his reaction. This is what he had to say.
Well, his biggest moments for me all the time were just one hit after another one-hit album. He always changed. reinvented himself a number of times. I mean, with the glove and with the mask and all his little gimmicks and stuff. You know, he was a fun kid, and to me, I say kid. You know, he's a lot older now, and so am I. But he was always fun, and you know, he just did so much. He always reinvented himself time after time, and he certainly was a great entertainer, a great dancer, and it was great to watch with all that energy. We all wondered how he did it. So maybe he blew his heart up, poor thing, you know.
I remember the moonwalk, and I remember everybody trying to do it, and nobody could figure it out. Nobody.
Yeah, well, everybody tried, but nobody ever really did any of that. Like Michael, you agree with that, don't you?
A 13-time Grammy winner, a member of the Songwriters Hall of Fame, not once but twice inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once with the Jackson 5 and once solo, and over the history of his career, total